Chapters 17 and 18 really need to be understood together because they both deal with two distinct systems that are headquartered in the same location. Now, there's a lot of discussion and debate about whether or not Babylon, mentioned in chapter 17 and 18, is literal in terms of a city or whether it is figurative in terms of, it just paints a picture of something. And I will tell you that I believe it is literal. It is referring to the literal ancient city of Babylon. I'm going to explain to you why I believe that the Bible teaches it will be revived, rebuilt, and again destroyed. But Babylon is no stranger to Scripture, except for Jerusalem. Babylon is mentioned more times in the Bible than any other city. Did you know that?
Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Kakadash, the belongers to the elders and the apostles, a great millstone, whom rule and taught us His truth. This is your brother Yashimai from the GMS Atlantic Camp. And I wanted to go back into Revelation, the 17th chapter. And so what I thought that I would do is I thought that I would juxtapose, basically compare it side by side to what the Christian church teaches, what at one point we ourselves once believed in. And so this Christian pastor he says that he believes that Babylon mentioned in the 17th chapter is actual literal Babylon. And he further goes on to talk about how Babylon is in what's today known as modern Iraq. And it's just it doesn't go with what the scriptures say. So let's go ahead and prove this. Let's get Revelation 17, the first verse. It says, "And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither." And that's the first, that is why these Christian churches don't get it. And that's because, as we see in this first verse, the Spirit is dealing with John. All right, now, who is John? John is an Israelite, man. And and that in itself is why these other nations, specifically the wicked, will never get the understanding of our holy scriptures. This is Wisdom of Solomon 1, verse 4. It says, "For into a malicious soul wisdom shall not enter, nor dwell in a body that is subject unto sin," man. So the Most High is not dealing with any wicked Edomite, man. Matter of fact, the Most High is not even dealing with all of His nation, Israel, on this part. Okay? Because the scripture says that, 2/3 of our people are going to be destroyed. So if the Most High is not dealing, if the Most High is not giving His wisdom to His own people, where do you think the wicked has any right to be able to open up our scriptures and say that they have the understanding? They don't. Let's get Daniel 2 just to continue to build upon that. It says, He revealed, this is Daniel 2 and the 22nd verse. It says, He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with Him. So the Most High, Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, He Himself is the one who gives us the understanding, starting with the elders and the apostles of GMSE. This is why it's very important for us to give double honors unto them. And this is why, to me, and to many brothers in this truth, it's it doesn't make sense why there are 85 different camps, man. There should only be one camp, right? Because only GMS has 100% truth. All right, and that truth has been revealed unto the elders and the apostles of GMS directly from the Most High. And it's always been this way. See, Amos 3 and 7, just to finish off the point on Daniel 2, it says, "Surely the Most High, Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, will do nothing, but He reveals His secret unto His servants, the prophets," man. So when this pastor stands up and says that he believes it's ancient, he believes that Babylon spoken about in Revelations is actually literal Babylon. That's what he says. Matter of fact, don't take my word for it. I wanted to save the brother's ears from, this blasphemy, but let's go ahead. You know.
More than 300 references throughout the Bible from Genesis to Revelation refer to the ancient city of Babylon. In the book of Revelation alone, in the whole book of Revelation, when you count them all up, there are 404 verses. And of those 404 verses, 42 verses refer to Babylon. Now, not necessarily by the name Babylon, but like chapter 17 and 18. These are all about Babylon. So all these verses go together to comprise 42 out of 404 verses are about Babylon in the book of Revelation. So basically 1 out of every 10 verses in the book of Revelation is about Babylon. God has a lot to say about Babylon. Now, Babylon is located about 55 miles south of Baghdad, along the Euphrates River in Iraq. And in its glory days under King Nebuchadnezzar, that's...
See, so there you have it, man. He thinks that the literal Babylon, he thinks that Iraq is going to rebuild itself, okay, and that Iraq is going to take over America, right? And then Yahushua is going to come back when Iraq is being rebuilt, and that's contrary to what the scriptures go into. Okay, let's get Daniel 7 verse 7. It says, after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Now we understand that this beast here is talking about the Roman Empire, the ancient Roman Empire. And the reason that I bring this up is because when you go through the book of Daniel, specifically the 7th chapter, it talks about the different kingdoms. It talks about the Assyrian Babylonian kingdom, talks about the Medo-Persian kingdom, right? And then it goes into the Greek Empire, and then it goes into the Roman Empire. And the reason I bring this up is because one kingdom, right, after the Assyrian Babylonian kingdom, right, which was during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar, which this guy says is going to be rebuilt. The Medo-Persians came and they destroyed that kingdom. Then the Greeks came and they destroyed that kingdom. And then the fourth beast, the ancient Roman Empire, came and they destroyed that prior kingdom. Nowhere in the scriptures, in the book of Daniel, is there any mention of the Assyrian Babylonians coming back? No, to the contrary. It says that the fourth beast stamped out the prior beast to it, and that's exactly what the other nations did. Okay, and then, just to get the meat off this bone, it says, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Okay, so this is the same beast mentioned in Revelations, the 17th chapter, and we're gonna see it because it talks about the beast, and it talks about the 10 horns. All right, now all Bible scholars will agree that this beast here is talking about the Roman Empire. And what race of people were the Roman Empire? It was the self-proclaimed whites. And, it's by no coincidence that ancient Roman Empire is the very same beast with the same 10 horns mentioned in Revelations, the 17th chapter, man. So, no, it's not ancient. It's not that when the scriptures in the book of Revelations talk about Babylon, it's not talking about ancient Babylon being rebuilt. That's not the prophecy in the book of Daniel. All right, it's talking about the word Babylon. The root word is babal, which it just means confusion, and that's exactly what America is. Okay, so now let's continue back on verse 1. Now that we've proved that it's not ancient Babylon that's going to be rebuilt, who is this place? Well, through, matter of fact, let's get Revelations 20 real quick, KJV, because as we just saw in the book of Daniel, right here we see the ancient Roman Empire, a beast, and it had 10 horns, okay? And that same ancient Roman Empire would be the same empire that that is living today. That is Babylon. Okay, it says boom 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 boom. No, Salakia. I'm thinking Revelations 20. Revelations the 13th. So I'm looking for the deadly wound that was healed. Right here. uh, Revelations 13 and 3 says, "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast." So here we have scripture talking about seeing one of the empires almost going down, but its head would be healed. Now, from here, I want to grab that word "healed" in the blue letter. We'll get that real quick. It's right here. Um, because that word "healed," see, other Christian pastors would have you think that it's talking about an actual man. People thought that Trump is the actual man mentioned here, and that's not what it's talking about. All right, because if it was Trump, where are Trump's other seven heads? It just doesn't make sense, man. See, you have to have the full understanding, man. And this beast is talking about a beast system, as we're going to get into. But I wanted to get the word heal, and that word in the Greek is theropeuo. Theropeuo. And that word heal means to restore. See, the ancient Roman Empire has been rebuilt. It has been restored, and we see that through the architecture in America. We see that through the two-party system, right? The Republicans and the Democrats, which are a mirror of the plebeians and the patricians during the ancient Roman Empire. So that same beast in Daniel 7 is Babylon. See, the scriptures intermix. The scriptures are very symbolic. Okay, and Babylon is intermixed. Throughout this in the Old Testament, for example, Nahum. It talks about the downfall of Assyria. Well, that's also, yes, it's talking about literal the downfall of Assyria, but it's also, Assyria is also used to prophesy, against Babylon, which is America. Babylon, America is also, according to Revelations 11, the 8th verse, is also known as spiritual Sodom and Egypt. Okay, so is the point that I'm trying to make here is that there is no way that it's talking about ancient Babylon. All right, so now let's continue on. It says, "I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters." And so this is another scripture that we can use to show you that Babylon here is talking about America. And we're going to jump straight down to verse 15 because, verse 1 talks about the whore that sits on many waters. Verse 15 gives you the understanding. It says, "He says unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues." So this man believes that ancient Babylon is going to be built back up. But they're going to build a navy. They're going to build more aircraft carriers than America, and then they're going to sit among around the entire globe. No, that's not biblically. It doesn't make sense, man. Because when you go, just to prove what the scriptures are saying, the waters in the first verse is talking about peoples, and throughout the scriptures we see many examples of waters being used to represent people. This is Isaiah 59 and 19. It says, "So shall they fear the name." Well, um, that's not really good because that's talking about the ICBMs. But Isaiah 8 verse 7 says, "Now therefore behold, the Most High brings up upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria, in all his glory, and he shall come up over all his channels and go over all his banks." So here we see the prophet Isaiah talking about the downfall of the northern kingdom by the Assyrian king. And what do we see here? He says the Most High is going to bring upon them waters of the river. Those waters of the river, we know that the northern kingdom didn't, the earth wasn't flooded in Samaria. No, those waters here is talking about a large army of people. And we see another example of it in Revelation 12, the 15th verse. It says, and the serpent, which we know that this serpent here in this context is talking about the ancient Roman Empire, says, and the serpent cast out of his mouth water as flood after the woman. And we know that the woman is Israel. Specifically in this context, is talking about the southern kingdom, right, which fled from Jerusalem and fled into the northern parts of Africa. So when the scripture talks about the serpent casting out of his mouth water as a flood, that's the ancient Roman army going after the southern kingdom, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. Because ultimately, the ancient Roman Empire came after the southern kingdom, right? So now let's go back to Revelation 17. Here says, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters. And see, that's something, I'll go ahead and give props to that Christian pastor, because at least, even though he's completely wrong, at least, he's got, some kind of bravery to go into the book of Revelations, because a lot of Christian churches don't go into it. I remember being in the Christian church and, being scared about this book. And I remember asking some of the leaders, like, how come we don't go into that? And even they themselves will tell me, oh, well, we don't have the understanding, man. And does not prophecy say that their own tongues shall fall upon themselves? In them acknowledging that they don't have the understanding, it brings up this precept which we brought up. Into a malicious soul, wisdom shall not enter it. Because, these Christian churches are nothing more than, white supremacy, man. Why do we say that? Because here it is. They give us a false image of a so-called white man from the Middle East, and they tell you this is your God. And it's just contrary to what the scriptures go into, because we know that Judah, where Yahushua comes from, Judah is in the scriptures is described as a so-called black person, man. Now let's stay on topic here. Verse 2 says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So what is this talking about? Well, wine in the scriptures is likened unto philosophy, and that's the understanding for this context. Yes, for those smart asses. Oh, look, he just said wine. So now what? So did Yahushua turn wine into philosophy? No. That's why I said in context. Yes, in the scriptures, wine is, talking about alcohol, but also in context, it's talking about philosophy. And this whore, America, has made all the kings of the earth, which are all the other nations, they have all committed fornication with this whore. How is that? Well, I got a picture right here. This is a picture of the G7 summit. Now, these are all the kings of the earth. These are all the leaders of the earth. And this is a perfect image showing that they have all committed fornication with this great whore, because this great whore, America, right here, this is the whore that sits upon many waters. Matter of fact, let's go ahead and bring this out. And we always bring this out too. How many military bases does the U.S. have around the world? Okay. The U.S. has 750 military bases in at least 80 countries. All right. And that is only the military bases that we know about. So the U.S. fits perfectly with the first verse, the whore that sits upon many waters. America has military bases, and if they're not military bases, they are almost called NGOs, non-government organizations, which are heavily infiltrated by CIA people. They put on this facade that, we're gonna go to Africa, or we're gonna go to Vietnam to help feed the hungry. And what do? They send wolves among those sheep, man. They send CIA people to topple the government, man. There was a video that came out too, where the retired Army General Flynn, Yeah. General Flynn was talking about how the CIA has to stop doing coups. Well, how does the CIA do coups? Do you think that they blatantly go into other countries with a CIA badge? Of course they don't. They go over there through their philosophy. They go over there through telling, through their wine. Hey, we're gonna help your country out, and if you don't let these people in, we're gonna pull your funding. We're not gonna, protect you anymore. And so all of the earth has committed this fornication. All of these people, all those people that you saw in that image right here, have committed fornication. They have all come into agreement, and given power unto, they have given their power unto the beast, man, right? Unto the dragon. All right. So now it says right here, it says, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. See, and again, I'm gonna go back to it. This was an Israelite that was carried away into the spirit. It wasn't a Moabite. Salvation and the secrets only pertain to the Israelites, man. Psalms 147 goes into it. Yahushai, if Yahushai wanted there to be no question about it that the other nations could be saved, don't you think he would have allowed a Moabite to be one of his disciples or a Elamite to be one of his disciples? No, to the contrary, man. It was all Israelites. So now, furthermore, it says, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And so here we see Babylon, what? Having 7 heads and 10 horns. And isn't that reminiscent of the 10 horns here mentioned in Daniel 7? It's because it is the same beast. Matter of fact, we'll go back to Revelations 13, and then we'll go here. It says, and he opened it, and it was given to he that lead it. It's right here, verse 12. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell thereon to worship the force of the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. That's America. America is mirrored right after the ancient Roman Empire, and a quick Google search will tell you that. But to stay on topic, here, what are those 7 heads and those 10 horns? Well, those 7 heads are representative of the prior kingdoms of these Edomites. And what are those 7 heads? Well, those 7 heads are the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, Germania Minor, Germania Major, the French, the Spaniards, and the British. Those are the 7 heads. And the 10 horns are the EU nations. These people here are part of those 10 horns, man. Okay? So all of this, it goes back to it goes back to Rome. Matter of fact, uh, check this out. Benjamin Net and Yahoo says America is Rome. Let's see if we can get that video. Yes, yeah, he did right here. See, this is why we got to be careful with Google. No, Benjamin did not say America is Rome. Of course he did. See, I don't got no damn Facebook. Let me see, man. But there's the video right there on Facebook, Instagram. I got no Instagram either. Instagram. Let's see if it'll let me open it up on Instagram. Let's see. Where's the sound at?
Feeling this, but I'm going to. I said to the secretary that the last time Pompeo visited Jerusalem didn't end that well. But this is a different time. Rome and Jerusalem clashed over values with a great tragedy for the Jewish people. But the new Rome, the United States, views itself as a new Jerusalem.
The new Rome, the United States. So hey, don't take it from our mouth because according to this world, we're just so-called Black Hebrew Israelites. Which that in itself, that's a falsehood. But don't take it from us. Take it from whom you say is the chosen people. he said it. He said America is the new Roman Empire. And of course he did, man, because these people know our scriptures more than our own people do. This is the beast whose deadly wound was healed, man. America is mirrored after ancient Rome, and when you go into ancient Rome, there was it started off with the they also had what's the word 7 major vassal states. And just for the edification, let's get that vassal state. A vassal state is a country or a political entity that is subordinate to a more powerful state. Right. So, Rome had other vassal states, right? But Rome allowed them to operate, but they gave their power to Rome. They gave the power to the beast, as the scripture goes into, right? And a good example of it is the United States, for example. But, a better example is the United Nations. The United Nations, they are all in line with America. America is that deciding vote. And now, even though these other nations have their own autonomy, at the end of the day, it's whatever America says. Because at any time, America can withdraw their support from them. Okay. The example that I was going to give to was of the United States. There's 50 United States that have their own government, but they're all tied to one federal system. America. So let's go back to Revelations here. It says, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Verse 4, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, which purple, is goes into riches. All right, purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. So, America, this whore is, in the eyes of John, it was a very attractive female. Okay, it was a very attractive female, and that's what America is to all these nations. That's why these other nations commit the fornication that they do with America, because America presents itself as the beacon of light. Everyone wants to be like America. Matter of fact, I want to go back to that photo because look at this. What do you notice in common between all these people? They all have the business suit. Why these so-called Japanese? They don't. Their ancient wear isn't a business suit. That's not their ancient wear. Same thing with these, so-called Germans, man. That's not their ancient wear. But what have they done? They have committed fornication, and they want to be like America, man. But what does the scripture go on to say? It says she has a golden cup. So again, everything looks good on the outside, but in her hand is full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And that's exactly what a lot of these, immigrants begin to uncover when they come over to the United States, man. They see what Hollywood has put in front of them, and then they get here and they're like, man, this is shit. A lot of these people want to go back, man. They want to go back to their country, which that in itself is prophecy, because doesn't the prophecy say that, matter of fact, says, we'll go ahead and pull that precept, everyone back to their own country or land. KJV. Where's that? Isaiah. There you go. And it shall be as a chase roe and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his people and flee every one into his own land. That's prophetic speak, man. That's prophetic speak for the for these end times, that people are starting to see the filthiness and the abomination in this whore, man, and so they want nothing to do with it. It says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth, man. So, for brothers that aren't aware, when you put these letters together in the Hebrew, all of this adds up to 666, man. And we can link up, 666 with these Edomites, man. Matter of fact, one of them, when you look at Bill Gates's GMO food, his barcodes are, it starts with the six. What did they tell you during the vid? Stay 6 feet apart. There was another thing that came out too. I was watching some video, and it had to do with the history of some war, but they said something like, no, I think it's got to do with Venezuela. It's escaping my memory, but they also mentioned the number six, man. And so all these are just clues that point to America being Babylon, America being the man of sin. These Edomites being that people, all right. And if there isn't, and if there's still, if there's still some doubt, isn't verse 6, will paint the picture. It says, and I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Yahushai. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Now, first and foremost, who are the saints? We'll just get this real quick. Psalms 50, verse 5. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. So the saints are the Israelites. All right. And this woman, America, has been drunken with the blood of the Israelites. You can just superimpose that. I saw America drunken with the blood of the Israelites. And we know that the Israelites are the so-called blacks, natives, and Hispanics. Okay. And America has been drunken off of the blood of the so-called blacks, the blood of the so-called Native Americans, and the blood of the Hispanics, man. All right, we've been pushed out, we've been enslaved, and so for that, there's a judgment to pay back. Matter of fact, let's go back to Genesis, Cain and Abel, the blood cried out, KJV. Genesis 4 and 10 says, and he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood cries unto me from the ground, man. And we know that, Cain and Abel are a representative of Esau and Jacob, man. And just as the blood was crying out from the ground in the book of Genesis, the scripture, again, the Alpha, the Omega, everything links together, precept upon precept. Here a little, there a little. The blood is also crying out again, man, to this day. And I've been bringing this scripture out heavy on my videos. I'm going to bring it out again. Numbers 35:33. And that's contrary to the law. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein you are, for blood it defiles the land. And the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that sheddeth. So America is drunk with the blood of the Israelites, and the only way for that to happen is judgment. And that's the very first thing that verse 1 goes into, and that's the very same thing that these Christians stay away from. It says it had the seven vials, man, and those seven vials is judgment. Okay? Let's see. I don't want to make this video too long. I may end up doing a part 2. There's a lot to get here. And I want to make sure I do it justice. So let's go back to verse 6 here. It says, and when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. So this woman was so appealing that even John, he wondered, man. Verse 7, and the angel said unto me, wherefore did thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. And so the mystery of that woman and the 10, that woman is America. Okay, America rides the beast. And the beast, when you read about the beast in Revelations 13, that's the beast system. Okay, what does the scripture say? It says right here, it says, I will tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast that carries her, because America rides the beast, but America is also propped up by the beast. Okay, America on its own couldn't stand. All right, and even more so, these nations on their own, they couldn't stand, and so they give power unto the beast. They give power. I mean, they give power unto the woman, man. They give power unto America. It says the beast that thou sawest was and is not. So what does that mean right there? It's telling you again. It's going back. Where's it at in Revelation? And he exercises the power of the first beast, which we know that's talking about Daniel, it's talking about ancient Rome, and causes the earth and them that dwell thereon to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So the beast whose deadly wound was healed is America, and the scripture's starting to go into that. The beast that thou sawest was, right? It's talking about the Roman Empire, and is not. Why does it say and is not? Well, because at the time that John got this vision, America hadn't ascended yet. It says, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Now, what is that talking about? He shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. The bottomless pit is Europe, okay? And go into perdition. And that word perdition is destruction. And now we understand, now that makes so much more sense when you bring up 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3 says, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, which was us discontinuing from our heritage, and that the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So the son, do you see how the son of perdition is the very same word used here when it's talking about the revived Roman Empire? And go into perdition, the son of perdition, they are one in the same. Says, let me do some real quick because somebody just, I know that my son just connected to my headphones. Hopefully the audio's still good. I know my son just connected to my AirPods. He's out there playing with them, but yeah, I'm gonna start to wrap it up here in case the audio cuts out. I don't want to go on with that too much, and then it turns out that there's no audio. It says, and they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, all right, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. And at one point, we also wondered, just like John wondered. He says, I wondered with great admiration, but then he got snapped out of it. The Spirit snapped him back out of it. And that's the same thing that happened to us. We at one point, we all wondered at this, or we all wanted to be, just like the so-called white man. We all wanted that white picket fence. We all thought that it was right for us to vote. We all thought that it was right for our people to get the book tossed at them while America went on and plundered the entire world. We all marveled, man. But now we've been delivered. See, just as John was waking up by the Spirit, we also ourselves, we were waking up. This is Isaiah 9:2. It says, the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them has the light shine. We were we were asleep, and the Most High turned on the light for us. So and that's what the scripture is going into when it talks about those whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, because certain elect men, according to Ephesians 1:4, certain elect men have been predestinated to be saved. The book of Romans goes into that too. What's that scripture? Is reserved 7,000 men to not bow to Baal. KJV. Romans 11:4 says, but what saith the answer of the Most High unto them? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. So there are, which 7,000, is just a perfect number. We know that is, the actual number is 144,000 elect men, and the innumerable multitude, certain men have been set aside for salvation. This is that remnant spoken about in the scriptures. It says, when they behold the beast that was, which is the Roman Empire, and is not, because America hadn't been born, and yet is, because it was going to be born. And now we have that understanding, man. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. Just hopefully for the sake that the audio is still going. I'm going to continue on with this.
and then we'll also compare it with what these crazy ass Christians think that the scriptures say. Till the next one, shalom.